All right, everyone, you are going to start today with Subunit 2, Lesson 1, The Cave. We're continuing with our Greek mythology as we get to some new stories. And the first one that we are looking at is from a longer story called The Odyssey that was written um, by a guy named Homer, actually. Um, and this is something that was written even kind of before some of the time we were talking about earlier last week. This is about a 2,700-year-old story, um, and it focuses on a Greek king named Odysseus, um, who went on this 10-year journey where he is trying to get home to Ithaca after something called the Trojan War. Um, so we're going to read about Odysseus in his travels on this journey where he is on a ship going from place to place with a bunch of his men. So that's the ship's crew, that kind of stuff. Um, this is a story, so we're looking for the characteristics, the elements, the structures of a fictional passage. Um, Even if it doesn't maybe read like a traditional fiction passage, some of these excerpts are going to have very familiar ideas, structures, um, things that you see in all kinds of fiction stories, whether that's Harry Potter, whether that is something that's a little more realistic, maybe one of the books you're reading from the library, something you've watched. Uh, these fictional stories share many, many elements, and we're going to take a look at and focus on some of them while we read. So pay attention to what Mr. O'Connor is asking you to focus on during this reading about Odysseus. Starting in Activity 2, we're going to take a look at some of the background for the Odyssey, and we're going to do some preparation for close reading and some discussion that you are going to be having. So, as we read some of the stories, some of the things to know is, again, this is a very, very old story. So, it could be some of the ways that characters speak, some of their actions, that kind of thing is a bit different than what we're used to for modern stories. There are customs, there are cultural aspects that were common back then, and that's just part of how the characters act. Additionally, this was published in the United Kingdom, so it could be that even though it's in English, there's maybe punctuation, spelling, that kind of thing that look a little bit different than what we're used to. So a single quotation mark for punctuation, that's different. At the beginning of the paragraph is a way of showing that a character is speaking instead of the double quotation mark that we're used to seeing. So small differences. Overall, still just a fictional story. So you're going to read for a little under 4 minutes this book 9 called The Cyclops. As you read, it's going to be really important that you focus on some elements of the story. So after you finish reading, you should be able to answer these questions. All right. Who is the main character in this section? Second question is, what is the main character's problem? The third question is is the main character solving the problem, or how did the main character solve the problem, or are they taking steps to solving that problem? Those are starting to tell us about characters, conflict, and eventually theme. Those are the big three elements in all passages, all fictional stories that we read, watch, listen to, all that kind of thing. They all share those elements. So, highlight information about the main character in green. That can be physical descriptions, that can be emotional states. How are they feeling? How are they responding? That kind of stuff. And this is all about the main character, right? So behaviors, one way to think of it is fast, right? Their feelings, actions, what they say, what do they think, all about the main character in green. Conflict. Let's pretend that you're right here and you're like, oh, yeah, this sentence really tells me it was a wonderful drink, and that's conflict. Conflict should be in red. Highlight your conflict in red. Now, if you don't see a main conflict, this is things that could be the main conflict. So, what do you think is going to be the main problem for the main character? And then, also in red, how is the main character trying to solve the problem? Okay, do they solve it right here? Do they solve it a little bit later? So those are the three things that you are highlighting as you read. Be sure to answer your questions about Odysseus and his crew. You've got card 2, card 3. What did Odysseus and his crew want to do? And 4. So make sure you're finding your evidence. Find evidence that explains what kind of people Odysseus's crew were. How do you know? How do you know tells you go back and find the evidence. What type of person is Odysseus? Go back and find the evidence. Activity 4. You're going to reread this passage. You are highlighting a few things that are a bit different now. So in blue, I would like you to highlight information about the owner of the cave. Those are descriptions about physical appearance, behavior, actions, emotions, thoughts, anything that describes the owner of the cave. Another way to say owner is maybe the person who controlled it, the person who lived there, who is the owner of the cave, and highlight some information about them. Go ahead and answer your prediction questions and complete your exit ticket.